I caught the first real warning sign on a Sunday afternoon while fixing the bathroom door that had been sticking for months. She was in the living room, or at least I thought she was, scrolling her phone like usual. I went to ask her something, I don't even remember what, and stopped dead just outside the doorway. She was laughing, not a light chuckle or polite giggle. No, the kind of laugh she used to reserve for drunken nights with old friends. The one that came from deep in her chest, unfiltered and electric. I hadn't heard her laugh like that in years. And she wasn't watching anything on TV. Her phone was tilted, just barely out of view. A man's voice buzzed faintly from the speaker. I didn't say anything. Not then. I backed away like I just stepped barefoot on glass, quiet and careful. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even jealousy, not at first. It was the sudden realization that I was watching someone who thought they were alone, someone showing a version of themselves I hadn't seen in a long time. A version that didn't include me. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. I started watching her differently, like you watch someone you no longer trust but still desperately want to. Every late-night work emergency became a signal flare. Every half-hearted kiss before bed was a dead plant she forgot to water. And still, I said nothing. Until Friday. Friday flipped the entire table. I left work early, not because I planned it. I had a migraine building behind my eyes, the kind that makes fluorescent lights feel like they're slicing into your skull. I didn't even text her I was coming home. I just drove, windows down, trying to breathe. Her car was in the driveway. I stepped inside and heard it instantly. Music. Loud, rhythmic, bass-heavy. Something she wouldn't normally play unless she was working out or trying to psych herself up for something. Then I caught the scent. Not perfume. Not cologne. Just sweat, adrenaline, the kind of thick air that tells you someone's been moving fast and doesn't want to talk about it. I walked up the stairs. Slow, quiet. The door to the guest room was shut. That door is never shut. I opened it without knocking. The room was empty. Empty but wrong. The sheets were messed up. The lamp was on, though the curtains were drawn tight. There was a water bottle on the nightstand, not hers. A pair of men's sunglasses sat next to it, way too big for her face. She walked in behind me, towel around her neck, wet hair, sports bra, and leggings, like she'd just come from a run. Her face froze when she saw me. I asked, calmly, "Who was here?" She blinked once, twice. "What are you talking about?" "The sunglasses." I pointed. "The bed. You've never worked out in here. What's going on?" There was a pause, a long one. Then came the laugh. Not the one I heard on Sunday, but that dry, dismissive chuckle she uses when she wants me to feel stupid. "Are you serious right now? Are you spying on me now? You really think someone was here?" I walked over, picked up the glasses. "These aren't mine. They're old," she snapped. "You probably left them in the car and forgot. Don't start creating problems because you're bored." I didn't say anything. I just stared. She moved fast, grabbed the glasses, shoved them in the drawer, and crossed her arms. "You're paranoid. It's honestly disgusting. I work out and now I'm cheating? Grow up." I stepped closer. "Say it again. Look me in the eyes and tell me no one was here." She didn't. She turned and walked out. That night, she left the house without saying where she was going. And I stood in the guest room, staring at the imprint of a body that wasn't mine on our extra bed, thinking about how small lies always come wearing gym clothes and the smell of someone else's skin. She didn't come home that night. No text. No call. No excuse. I sat on the edge of the bed until 2 in the morning, watching the hallway like it owed me answers. Every minute that passed felt like a slap I couldn't block. At some point, I got up and stood in the guest room again, not even sure why. Just standing there, breathing in the stale air and wondering if this was the exact place where everything ended without a sound. The next morning, she walked in at 9:42 a.m. No keys fumbling in the lock. No quiet tiptoeing. Just bold, like nothing was wrong, like I hadn't asked her the night before who was in our house. She had a smoothie in her hand. "Morning," she said, casual, like we were two strangers who happened to live under the same roof. "Where were you?" She didn't even look up from her cup. "I stayed at Megan's. We had wine." I didn't want to drive. Megan, I repeated, because Megan lives 2 towns over and Megan also got married last week and was currently honeymooning in Italy. I know this because we sent a gift. She blinked once. A half-second of hesitation. Then her shoulders squared. You're not going to start interrogating me every time I breathe, are you? That was the moment I realized she wasn't just hiding something. She was daring me to find it. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I walked into the kitchen, sat down at the table, and said, "Give me your phone." Her laugh wasn't even forced this time. "Are you serious? You want to check my phone now? You said nothing's going on. So let me see it?" She rolled her eyes like I'd asked her for a kidney. "Tyler, no. That's not how trust works." "No," I said, leaning forward. "This is exactly how it works when trust is already shattered." She stared at me for a beat too long. Then she said something I'll never forget, not because it was cruel, but because of how calm it was. "You're not strong enough for the truth. And if you were, I still wouldn't give it to you." It hit like a steel rod across the chest. No yelling. No denial. Just quiet contempt. She turned and walked upstairs. That was the first time I felt something inside me crack, not break, not shatter, just crack, like a hairline fracture waiting to spread. Because I realized something no one ever tells you: betrayal isn't always loud. Sometimes it's casual. Sometimes it wears yoga pants and tells you that your pain is your problem. I stayed at a hotel that night. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't leave a note. I just drove until the lights of our house disappeared in the rearview mirror. And I cried in the car like a man who'd just been told his whole life was a lie dressed in Lululemon. That was only the beginning. I didn't go back the next day. Or the day after. The silence between us became its own kind of language, bitter, thick, the kind that fills your lungs when you're underwater too long. She didn't call. Didn't text. And I didn't reach out either. Part of me hoped she'd chase after me. Say something. Show some flicker of guilt, of effort, of anything. But no. She let me disappear. By day 3, I started to spiral. I hadn't eaten properly, hadn't slept. My mind wouldn't stop replaying her face when she said it: "You're not strong enough for the truth." That wasn't just an insult. That was a confession wearing a smirk. I needed clarity. Proof. Something. So I went back. Not to her. To the house. She wasn't there when I arrived. I checked her location on our shared family plan, surprised it was still active. She was across town at some upscale brunch place. Figures. Betrayal always tastes better with mimosas. I used that window. I went inside, calm and methodical, heart pounding like a war drum under my shirt. I didn't even know what I was looking for at first. But there's something about betrayal. It leaves fingerprints all over the place when you stop trying to protect the person who did it. Took 15 minutes. I found a second phone. It was hidden in the back of her vanity drawer, behind an old makeup bag she hadn't used since the pandemic. It was off. I powered it on, hands trembling. No lock screen. Just open. The texts started popping up before I even touched anything. One after another. Notifications from a name saved as Ash Work. Except Rachel doesn't work with anyone named Ash. I scrolled. My stomach turned inside out. Ash. I'm thinking about last Tuesday again. That thing you did with your mouth. Ash. Your husband home tonight? Ash. Can't stop picturing you in that red lace you wore for me. There were pictures too. Blurry ones. Suggestive. Her neck in a mirror. His hand on her thigh. I stopped looking after that. Couldn't breathe. And then one text. Short. From her. Sent at 2:16 a.m. 2 weeks ago. I don't care what happens anymore. I'm not afraid of him. I dropped the phone. That single line detonated something inside me. Not only was she betraying me, she was painting me like some kind of threat, laying the groundwork, turning herself into the victim before I even knew I was the villain in her new story. I grabbed the phone and left the house like it was on fire. I went back to the hotel, threw the phone on the bed, and sat on the floor staring at it. The rage was there, of course, but underneath it, this creeping, soul-deep fear. She's planning something. And I was right, because 24 hours later, the police knocked on my door. They came in twos. Plain clothes, polite but stiff. One stood by the door, the other asked if I was Tyler Brooks. I nodded. My voice caught in my throat before I could speak. Not because I was guilty, but because I already knew. We're following up on a report of domestic disturbance, the lead officer said. His tone was rehearsed, clinical. He looked past me, scanning the room like I might have someone tied to the radiator. A report, I said finally. From who? She says you threatened her life, that you've been unstable, aggressive, and just like that, the world tilted sideways. I told them I hadn't even seen her since I left the house. I told them I was the one who walked out. I told them she was cheating. I told them everything, the guest room, the glasses, the secret phone, the messages. They asked for the phone. I pointed to the bed. It's there. But it wasn't. I blinked, walked over, tossed the covers aside. Gone. It was just gone. My stomach bottomed out. I don't understand. It was right there. The younger cop raised his brow. You said you had evidence? I did. I snapped. I had her second phone. I found it. She must have come while I was out. She must have taken it. Sir, the older one interrupted. Do you have any proof of that? I stared at him. You're saying she broke into your hotel room, retrieved an alleged second phone you found without her knowledge, and left without a trace? He didn't say it like a question. He said it like a diagnosis. I didn't resist. Didn't argue. But my hands were shaking when they cuffed me. Cold steel. The weight of humiliation pressing on my spine like wet concrete. I remember sitting in the back of that squad car, staring out at the rain-smeared city. It didn't feel like my life anymore. It felt like a scene written by someone who hated me. I spent the night in a holding cell. No charges yet, just processing while they reviewed her report. She'd told them I had a temper, that I'd hit the wall near her, that I'd screamed threats. None of it was true. But the moment those words came out of her mouth, it didn't need to be true. It just had to be possible. When I called my brother to come get me the next morning, he answered with, "What the hell is going on, man?" I tried to explain. He didn't believe me. Not fully. There was doubt in his voice. That same doubt I saw in the officer's eyes. By the time I got out, my phone had blown up. Family group chats. Missed calls. A message from my mother that made my chest cave in. Tyler, what did you do? I didn't reply. Because I realized it didn't matter. She'd poisoned the well. And now I was the one crawling through the mud, trying to breathe. I went back to the hotel, and this time I locked everything. Bolted it too. Then I sat there in that sterile, beige room and listened to the silence, the kind of silence that only comes when you've been stripped of everything except the echo of your own confusion. She didn't just cheat on me. She buried me while I was still alive. I stayed inside for 3 days after the arrest. Not because I was scared, at least, not in the way most people would think. It was deeper than that. Like the whole world had shifted 4 inches to the left and nothing lined up anymore. I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling fan for hours, listening to it click on every third rotation like some kind of countdown. I kept going over the same questions. How long had she been planning this? Was the cheating always meant to be just a stepping stone to this? Did she really believe the lies she told the cops, or was this just her way of getting the last word? Then something unexpected happened. I got a letter. Not an email. Not a text. A real, paper envelope. No return address. I opened it slowly, half expecting to find a restraining order. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Typed. Anonymous. Just 1 paragraph. You don't know me, but I work at the same company as Rachel. I thought you should know she's been seeing someone from our office for almost a year. His name's Caleb. She brings him to our off-site events. He's married too. People talk. And I just couldn't watch her keep pretending like you were the monster. She's playing a very dangerous game. Watch your back. No name. No signature. Just truth with the edges cut off. That was the moment I stopped spiraling and started calculating. Because this was leverage. This meant she didn't have total control of the story like she thought she did. I ran a search. Caleb wasn't hard to find. His name was on their company's website, smiling like a man who's never had to burn down his own life. I debated reaching out to his wife, but something told me to wait. Watch. Observe the next move before I made mine. So I called a lawyer instead. I sat across from him in a gray office that smelled like printer ink and tension. I told him everything. From the moment I found the red scarf to the night the cops took me away like I was some kind of threat to society. He listened. Really listened. Then he leaned back and said, if what you're saying is true, she's setting you up for something bigger. You need to prepare for the worst. He helped me file for a legal separation the next day. But that wasn't the interesting part. The interesting part came 2 days later when someone knocked on my hotel room door. I opened it expecting housekeeping. Instead, it was her mother. She looked like she'd aged 10 years. Eyes hollow. Voice low. I just need to know the truth, she said, stepping into the room before I could stop her. I told her everything. And when I was done, she didn't say a word. She just reached into her bag and pulled out a flash drive. She left her old laptop at our place last month, her mother said, setting the drive on the desk. We didn't look through it until yesterday. I think you should see what's on it. Then she left. No dramatic exit. No hug. Just that flash drive sitting on the desk like a loaded gun. I plugged it in. Inside were folders. Hundreds of photos, documents, saved messages, even screenshots from dating apps. A diary file. Logs of conversations. Names. Dates. Proof. More than enough. And the worst part? She'd done this before. She'd done this before. It wasn't even hidden, it was right there, like she didn't think anyone would ever look. Folder after folder labeled in bland titles like personal notes and receipts, but inside, pure chaos. Emails with names I didn't recognize. Screenshots from private chats. Voice memos. Journal entries. And every piece of it connected to men. Not just me. Not just Caleb. There were 3 others before me. 2 of them married. 1 had kids. All of them had something in common. They were systematically broken down, humiliated, and eventually discarded, but only after they were accused of something. Patterns. Same language. Same tactics. Emotional manipulation. Gaslighting. Accusations that couldn't be disproven. One of the guys even lost his job after she claimed he'd harassed her. I found an email chain, HR correspondence. He denied it all. His tone was the same as mine, raw and confused. That email ended with, I don't understand what's happening. Same playbook. Different targets. She didn't just lie. She engineered destruction. And now I was in the final act of her longest performance yet. I couldn't sit still. I printed everything. Backed it up to 3 drives. Sent a copy to my lawyer. Burned it to a disk and mailed it to myself, unopened, time-stamped. I took no chances. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was preparing for war. And then, as if she could feel me slipping out from under her control, she made her move. She called. It was the first time I'd heard her voice since she watched me get arrested. Hey, she said, soft. Like nothing had happened. Can we talk? I stared at my phone like it had grown teeth. You want to talk, I repeated. Flat. Cold. There was a pause. Then, I know you're upset. I think we both said things we didn't mean. I didn't let her finish. You had me arrested. Another pause. Then that tone, practiced sympathy. You were spiraling. I didn't feel safe. You were following me, asking questions, accusing me. Panicked. It got out of hand. Out of hand? You told them I was a threat. I just wanted space, Tyler. You were, I snapped. Not loud. Not wild. Just sharp enough to cut through her script. I found the phone, Rachel. I read the messages. I found your second life. And now I know I wasn't the first. Silence. Not defensive. Not surprised. Just still. I knew then that she'd been waiting for this day. For the confrontation. For the moment where she could flip the board over and start fresh somewhere else. Pretending none of it was her fault. You have no idea what kind of mess you've made, I said. But you will. She sighed. An exhausted sound, like I was the one being unreasonable. I thought maybe we could be adults about this, she said. But I see you'd rather burn everything down. She hung up. Just like that. No apology. No admission. No remorse. And that right there was her final mistake. Because I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted justice. And I had everything I needed to get it. The next few days moved with a strange, electric focus, like a storm was brewing, but I was finally the one holding the lightning. My lawyer didn't blink when I showed him the contents of that flash drive. He just leaned forward, sifted through each file with the kind of surgical calm that only comes from seeing this kind of darkness before, and muttered, "This isn't just going to help us. This could change everything." And it did. We filed an emergency motion with the court to protect my record and push for a formal investigation. The accusations she made, the ones that got me arrested, were now under legal scrutiny. Perjury, false reporting, malicious intent. But the real turning point? That came from someone I never expected. Caleb's wife found me. She emailed me first, short and careful, asking if we could speak privately. I didn't respond right away. I wanted to be sure it wasn't bait. But then she sent a second message attaching a screenshot of a calendar entry, one that matched a photo I'd seen on the flash drive. Same day, same hotel. We met in a quiet cafe 2 towns over. She looked hollow. Not weak, just emptied. Like someone who had spent too long trying to make sense of someone else's chaos. Her name was Dana. "I saw your name on one of Rachel's Instagram posts," she said, eyes fixed on her coffee. "It took some digging, but I found you. I needed to know if I was crazy." "You're not," I told her. "None of us are." She showed me messages, photos, even a voice note, one where Rachel was laughing about how easy it was to keep her husband in line while sneaking around with Dana's. It was grotesque. Cruel in a way I hadn't even imagined. And then Dana did something that made my blood turn to ice. She pulled out a black journal, small, worn, packed with scribbles. "She gave this to Caleb," she said. "Told him to write out his real thoughts so they wouldn't fight." He did. He thought it was therapy. Inside were entries about me. About my relationship with Rachel. Things only she could have told him. Twisted versions of fights we had, complaints she exaggerated, full narratives that painted me as unstable, obsessive, dangerous. Caleb had been reading it, studying it, believing it. That's when it all clicked. She wasn't just cheating. She was curating. Crafting her life like a movie, starring herself as the misunderstood, trapped woman surrounded by violent men and heroic lovers. It wasn't love. It was control. Manipulation at the level of theater. We left the cafe with a plan. Dana gave me copies of everything. I gave her the flash drive. And together we agreed to go public if we had to. Because this wasn't about saving marriages anymore. It was about exposing a pattern. About stopping her before someone else got buried in her lies. That night, Rachel showed up at my hotel. I don't know how she knew I was there, but she knocked like she owned the place. I didn't open the door. I didn't even speak. I just watched her through the peephole, calm, composed, her makeup flawless, eyes calculating. She stood there for 3 full minutes. Then she slipped a note under the door and walked away. I waited until the elevator dinged before picking it up. The note read, "You're making a mistake. People will believe me before they believe you." But for the first time in weeks, I laughed. Because I knew soon they wouldn't. The moment the note hit my fingers, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Not peace, no, this wasn't peace. It was purpose. That kind of stillness a man finds only when he realizes there's nothing left to lose and everything left to prove. She thought she had the upper hand. She always did. That was her greatest flaw, arrogance wrapped in charm. She believed her version of events would survive scrutiny because she knew how to smile through her lies, how to cry on cue, how to drop just enough breadcrumbs for people to fill in the rest themselves. But this time, she'd overplayed her hand. By the end of the week, my lawyer had compiled a full dossier. Timelines, contradictory statements, records, the anonymous letter, and Dana's journal entries. It was thick, heavy, the kind of file that changes the mood in any room it enters. We filed a formal defamation complaint. I filed for divorce, full asset protection, requested spousal misconduct to be listed as the reason. That's when the backlash started. My mother called. She was crying. She said, "You hurt her, Tyler. That she's scared." I don't know what to believe anymore. That broke me more than any of the lies. I told her the truth. Every brutal, ugly detail. The false report, the arrest, the second phone, the anonymous tip, the flash drive, Dana. I laid it all out like a surgeon presenting a tumor. She didn't respond right away. Then she whispered, "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" "Because I couldn't." Because shame is a poison that makes you silent, especially when it's fed to you by someone you trusted with your life. I told her she'd have to decide for herself now. I didn't need defenders. I needed facts to speak louder than tears. And that's when the text started. Not from Rachel, from her inner circle. She's been through a lot. Maybe take the high road. This is still the mother of your future children, right? You're going to ruin her career if you go public. It was like watching a cult protect its leader. They didn't want the truth. They wanted the story to survive. And then the final text came. From a number I didn't recognize. You need to stop this. Now, you don't know who she really is. That sent a chill through me. Not because of the threat, but because it meant she was losing control. She was using shadows now, whispering through proxies, too scared to confront me again. And that's when I made the final decision. I contacted Caleb, not to threaten, not to fight, but to hand him the truth. We met at a neutral spot, a park. He looked like someone had hollowed him out, pale, jittery. I searching mine like he wanted to believe I was lying. I said nothing, just handed him a copy of the flash drive and a printout of the email from the anonymous coworker. He didn't speak for 5 full minutes. Then, quietly, "She told me you used to hit her." "I never touched her," I said. "But she knows how to make people believe otherwise." He nodded, not because he believed me yet, but because something inside him wanted to. I left him with the files. And that was it. I turned the light on. What happened next would either burn her story to the ground or show me just how deep the rot went. It took 5 days. 5 days of silence, of checking my email with hands that shook just slightly less each morning. 5 days of waiting to see whether Caleb would vanish back into her reality or step into mine and admit he'd been conned. The message came in the early hours of a Thursday. Subject: "I'm sorry." That was all it said in the preview. My stomach flipped as I opened it. Inside, his words were short, clipped, the kind that come from a man crawling out of denial with bloodied hands. "I didn't want to believe you, but I went through everything. The messages, the journal, the entries from before me. I cross-checked dates. She told me you had a drinking problem, that you stalked her, that you were violent. I believed her because she cried when she told me. And now I feel like a goddamn idiot." He admitted it all. That she'd mirrored him the way she mirrored me. Told him what he wanted to hear. Played the victim perfectly. Built an entire fantasy around being rescued from a cruel man, me. I've left the apartment. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I won't protect her anymore. If you need me to talk to anyone, I will. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred. She was unraveling. Finally. Slowly. Beautifully. And then the next blow came. Not from her, but from the world she'd built around her. My lawyer called me midday. His voice was tight. "She's filed a counterclaim. She wants to paint you as unstable. She says you're launching a smear campaign because you can't handle the divorce." I nearly laughed. Of course she did. Of course she thought she could spin this. She'd done it before, with other men, other flames, rewrite the narrative mid-sentence and make herself the hero of her own horror story. But this time I was ready. We had the flash drive. We had Dana. And now we had Caleb. 3 people. 3 angles. 1 story. And so we responded. With everything. My lawyer filed a motion to present documented evidence of her manipulations, previous patterns of false claims, emotional coercion, and the full contents of the drive. We requested a hearing with sworn witness statements. That night I got another note. Not digital. Another envelope, slipped under the door like some twisted ritual. Inside was a single photo. Me and her on our anniversary 3 years ago. Smiling. Arms around each other. On the back, written in her handwriting. "You'll regret doing this." They always do. It wasn't a threat. It was a reminder of how much power she used to have. How she'd controlled the narrative, rewritten the memories, rewritten me. But she didn't realize something crucial. That man in the photo, he was already dead. She killed him when she weaponized love and called it self-defense. I pinned that photo to the wall, not as a warning, but as a grave marker. She would never own my story again. The courtroom was cold. Not in the literal sense, the temperature was fine, but everything about it felt sterile, distant, hollow, like it had been designed to strip you of your humanity before you even sat down. The walls were beige, the ceiling too high. The air smelled like dust and paper and old grief. People shuffled in and out with files like they were carrying body bags. My case was scheduled last on the docket that morning. I sat alone, watching the minutes tick by, my lawyer beside me, flipping through his notes with the kind of quiet confidence that made me feel like I could still breathe. Then she walked in, not flustered, not afraid, poised, perfect. That same expression she always wore when she wanted people to believe she was the only one bleeding. But something was different now. The judge asked for opening remarks. Her lawyer went first, painting the same tired mural. I was a bitter man with a fragile ego incapable of letting go. That I'd invented stories to discredit a woman who dared to move on. That this was about revenge. Then it was our turn. My lawyer didn't raise his voice once. He didn't use dramatic language. He just submitted evidence calmly, methodically. He handed the court the flash drive, the journal pages, the messages between Rachel and Caleb, Dana's affidavit, even the anonymous letter traced back to someone inside her own company who finally agreed to step forward. One by one, her stories cracked. Her timeline fell apart under cross-examination. A hotel receipt placed her with Caleb the same night she claimed to be staying at her mother's. A deleted voice memo recovered by a forensic analyst recorded her laughing about getting someone fired because he wouldn't shut up. Then came Caleb's statement. In person. Calm, ashamed. Honest. I believed everything she told me. I didn't realize I was helping her hurt someone else. Her mask didn't fall. Not then. Not publicly. She stayed composed. But her eyes, those eyes that once watched me like they knew how to read my soul, they flickered. She knew it was over. She didn't speak once during the rest of the hearing. In the end, the judge didn't say much. Just enough. Motion granted. Defamation claims were upheld. False police report flagged for further review. Divorce filed under misconduct. Restraining order voided. Public record amended. And just like that, I walked out free. But not whole. Not yet. That came weeks later. When I finally met with my brother, the same one who didn't believe me when I was arrested. He stood awkwardly in my kitchen, eyes low, hands stuffed in his jacket. I read everything, he said quietly. I didn't know. I didn't want to believe someone could do that to you. I'm sorry. It wasn't enough. But it was a start. And the more I talked, to my lawyer, to Dana, even to Caleb once again, I realized something. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about survival. About reclaiming your voice after someone else tried to bury it under their performance. About not letting the pain rot you from the inside out. I started therapy. I deleted every photo of us. I changed my number. And when her name came up in conversation, which it still did sometimes, in whispers, in warnings, I didn't flinch. I just said, my ex betrayed me. And when I tried to talk to her, she accused me of violence. I was arrested. My family turned their back on me. Years passed. I moved on with my life. But now they want me to forget it all and come back like nothing ever happened. And to that, I always say the same thing. Let them try. I already buried the man who tolerated that version of love. She never called again. Not directly. But I heard she tried to play the same story with someone new. He found the flash drive online. A mutual friend sent it to him anonymously. He walked out on her before she could even finish the first tear.